NXT starts off with an eight-way tag team match between the Culling versus Soruka, Zarya, and Hank and Tang. The two groups have been fighting each other for a while now, with Hank and Tang dealing their problems with the Culling, also with Soruka and Zarya dealing their issues with Izzy Dave and Ted Paxley. We end up getting the Culling picking up the victory, which was very shocking. I just thought that the Babyface was going to win because typically the Culling typically lose matches, so I was very shocked that they won. But they end up winning due to Dark State, of all people, interfering in the match. Dark State came out, the lights turned off, and then the next thing you know, all you see is Tatum Paxley pinning Zarya, and they picked up the victory. I don't know where this is going. I don't know why Dark State would interfere in this match at all, unless the only thing I can think of is if they're going to go after the tag team titles, then it makes sense. But other than that, I don't know why they interfered in this match because Dark State had no interaction or no like build towards interacting or interfering with none of these groups, so that was a bit confusing. Now after the match though, you got the Calling celebrating, but you have Izzy Dame on the ground, hurt, and she's just like confused of the situation. You have Sean Spears and Nico, they're celebrating with Tatum, but Izzy Dane doesn't look too happy, so I don't know if they're going to tease a potential, I don't think a breakup. I think it's too soon for that, but I think there's something more here. There's no way you just, there has to be more to the story here. So maybe Izzy Dane wasn't in on a plan while Tanner Paxley had this in her back pocket. Who knows? But there has to be more to the story for Darkseid to interfere in this match because Darkseid had no reason to interfere in this match, and Izzy Dame seemed a bit confused by all this while Tatum Paxley is just celebrating. So maybe Tatum Paxley didn't tell Izzy. So we'll see how this plays out. But I was a bit confused by this, but the match was fine, and we're interested to see where this goes. We end up getting JC Jane. She ends up cutting a promo. She ends up basically celebrating, of course, holding two belts, being the TNA Women's Knockout Champion and being the NXT Women's Champion. Love that she won at Slammiversary. It was a solid match. Solid match against Masha Slamovich. She, hyping up her victory, hyping up, holding two belts. She ends up mentioning how she done it all by herself, that she didn't need nobody. Then you end up getting Lash Legend comes out. She basically wants a shot at JC Jane. Then you get Jada Parker comes out, and she wants a shot at JC Jane. They end up going back and forth. Then ends up leading into a brawl with I would say baby faces, because typically I say the baby faces stand tall, but Jada Parker and Lash Legend are not baby faces. They're just more like tweeners. They end up standing tall, and then you end up getting Jada Parker and Lash Legend start arguing. So it looks like those are going to be her next challengers. I know next week is going to be Fallon Henley and Jasper Nix versus Lash Legend and Jada Parker, which should be a solid match with, Lash Legend and Jada Parker picking up the victory. Very interested to see how this plays out. Now, I don't know who beats JC Jane for either of those titles since she's holding both championships, so I don't know who beats her. I'm assuming a TNA woman is going to beat her for the TNA Knockouts Women Championship. For the NXT title, on the other hand, don't really know. Me personally, the only option I really see is Lash, Jada Parker, or Blake Monroe. Now, Blake looked like she's going to be busy with Jordan Grace, so me personally, just give it to Jada Parker. Jada Parker is your most over woman in your division. Outside of Trick Williams, she's the most over person. Well, you could argue over Femi, but she's top 3 most over women. Like, it's ridiculous how she doesn't get consistent TV time. Her and Lash. It's kind of weird how Shawn Michaels don't book them more consistently, especially due to them being like one of your most over people in NXT. It's kind of insane. But Jada Parker deserves that title. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't think she's going to win it at like the next show or whatever, but if you could build the story there, Jada Parker most definitely should be the next one dethroning Jason James, especially because she's already getting babyface reactions, even though she's more like a heel. She acts more like a heel, but you could easily put her in like that over Femi role where she acts like a tweener, just depending on who she faces. So I'm very interested to see how this plays out. I'm assuming it might just lead to a triple threat, which I'm very excited about. So very interested to see how this plays out. I'm excited that Lash Legend and Jada Parker are finally going after the NXT title and actually have a shot. Because Jada Parker went after the NXT championship before, but we all knew she wasn't winning it against Stephanie McCurdy. This is a situation where I could actually see her winning it. This is actually a realistic shot of her actually winning it, so I'm very interested to see how this plays out. We end up getting Jasper Troy versus Ricky Saints. This was a decent match. This match, Jasper Troy just basically obliterated Ricky Saints the entire way, and he actually picked up the victory, which was very surprising. I did not expect Jasper Troy to win because all they have been doing on NXT is have him lose. So the fact that they had a win is kind of insane, and based off this, I don't understand why he lost the match at the Great American Bash because Javon Evans didn't need that victory, especially with a rib injury, but he was able to beat Ricky Saints clean. Kind of don't make any sense. Why did you have Jasper Troy beat Ricky, but he couldn't beat Javon? That made no sense. Now, to be fair, I think it kind of makes sense due to what I'm going to get to later with the whole Undertaker situation. But even still, you could still told that story without having him win at the Great American Bash. But I'm just happy he won. I'm happy he won. Hopefully they continue this and have him continue to win matches, have him continue to be built up strong, and build up new stars in the men's division because you desperately need it. So hopefully they continue this path. But this was a fine match, and I like what they did here. I like Jasper Troy looking very dominant, and he picks up the victory. Now we end up getting The Undertaker. The Undertaker, he ends up coming out. Well, Trick Williams calls out The Undertaker. The Undertaker comes out. He basically is saying that Trick Williams has no respect at all, and he needs to get some respect. Trick Williams basically tries to attack Undertaker, but it fails, and he ends up choke slamming him, and that's really it. Nothing more to really discuss here. That was basically the premise of the promo of just Trick Williams being the super arrogant, cocky heel of him being TNA champion, and Undertaker wants to show him some respect. That's really it. Now, the main thing I want to talk about is that towards the end of the show, it closed the show with Javon Evans. Throughout the show, Javon Evans is writing notes on like a notebook, and he's just trying to figure out what's the thing that he needs to do, what's next for him, basically. And Undertaker gave him some advice, which is go after the big dog. That's basically what he told him. Go after the big dog. So it looks like they're teasing him going after Obafemi and him dethroning Obafemi. Because if you're going after the big dog, he's the only big dog on the main roster. So if that's the case, I don't hate it if they build that story up. Because Obafemi, I love him as NXT champion, but to be fair, there's not much for him to do as NXT champion due to the lack of good booking of the men's division. That's part of it. But also due to him just being so goddamn dominant, it's just very hard to book someone to be believable to face Oba. So if they do Javon Evans, I don't hate that idea at all, to be honest. And plus, Javon Evans is he's more believable in terms of actually defeating than Oba. So if that's the case, I actually like this idea. Him going after Obafemi in a one-on-one match, build that up. I like it. I like that you could build this up for months of him constantly struggling to eventually get that big victory. I like the idea. Very interested to see how this plays out, but I like the idea if that's the route they're going. Very interested to see what they mean by go after the big dog. Very interested to see what he meant by that. But I'm assuming it has to just be Obafemi. That's the only thing I can think of. But interested to see how this plays out. We end up getting Blake Morrow. She finally makes her in-ring debut on NXT events versus on Ren Sinclair. She defeats Ren Sinclair. I'm not going to go that in depth on the match. It was a quick match. After the match, you end up getting Jordan Grace. She tries to attack Blake Morrow, but she was getting the upper hand at first, but security ends up pulling her away. This allowed Blake Morrow to get the upper hand. She ends up doing a DDT on a steel chair, and that's the end of the segment there. Building the rivalry of Jordan Grace, Blake Morrow. Nothing too major, but I like what they did here. They continue to build a rivalry of Jordan Grace and Blake Morrow, and hopefully eventually we could get some more promo segments, some more face-to-face interactions between the two. But they're just slowly building up this feud. Not really mad at it. Very interested to see how this plays out, though. Very curious to see who wins this feud. I'm assuming Blake Morrow will win this feud. Makes more sense, but I can easily see them doing Jordan Grace. But to be fair, Jordan Grace has been losing a lot on NXT, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's the right choice because she doesn't need to win a lot on NXT, and plus, her losing doesn't really affect her due to just her being Jordan Grace. So very interested to see how this feud plays out, though. We end up getting Ethan Page. He ends up showing off a brand new championship, and he ends up redesigning the North American Championship, which I thought was perfect. He basically ends up making the Canadian title, which I thought was amazing. This gave me MJF vibes of when he made the International Championship, the All-American Championship. This is great. This is great. Now, it's still called the North American Championship. Now, I think NXT need to go all the way with this. They need to call that the Canadian title. Go all the way with it. Do what AEW did with MJF. Call it the All-American Championship. Like, go all the way with it. This is great. He basically was cutting the promo basically how Canada is better, how he's Canadian, how Canadians are better than America. He was just basically hyping up Canada, basically hyping up, his heritage and whatever. Then you end up getting Santino. He comes out, basically defends America, and basically ends up requesting a match for next week. So next week they're going to have a match, Santino Marella versus Ethan Page, which should be a fun little match that Ethan Page should win. I don't know what's the end goal there, to be honest with you. Maybe Ethan Page completely demolishes Santino, get him some more heel heat. Whatever it is, this is great. This is great stuff. This is why I wanted Ethan Page to retain that championship, because you could just do more with Ethan Page. You could just do a lot more stuff with Ethan Page that you couldn't do with Ricky Saints. Now, to be fair, they had to get someone from TNA to do this, but to be fair, I feel like this could have worked either way, to be honest. If you could have easily got like someone like Miles Bourne, and I feel like this still would have worked. But this is great. This is great stuff, man. I love that Ethan Page retained. Can't wait to see what he does with that North American Championship. But this was great. This was a great segment. Then we get the main event. Obafemi, Josh Briggs versus in a more triple threat match for the NXT Championship. This was a solid match, really solid match. Really enjoyed it. Obafemi, of course, retained. Not really gonna go that in depth. Is Obafemi is just the king of triple threats. Put him in a triple threat, he's winning. He's just winning triple threats. Dude wins every triple threat. It was a good match. Really enjoyed it. The main thing is Javon Evans going to be his next challenger? He's the only challenger that makes sense, to be honest. Him or Ricky Saints. Those are the only two guys that make sense to go after him. Very interested to see what's next for Obafemi, but you guys let me know your overall thoughts and opinions below. This show was really good. This was a really good show. Hopefully, we continue with these good stretches of shows. Monday Night Raw was good. NXT was good. Hopefully, Dynamite becomes good. And hopefully, SmackDown is good. But you guys let me know your overall thoughts and opinions below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.